Ding.
Well, that ball, there it goes. Number 350 for Junior. First down, goodbye, baseball.
Poked away, picked up by Andre from
3/4 court, and he hit it.
He had his eyes on the prize and let it fly.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's another edition of the Tanndemonium Sports Show, broadcasting live exclusively on twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. Go there, subscribe, so that way you will know whenever we go live. I am your host, Bryan Tann, and with me, as always, the art of art to my Sabonis, Jackson Law. J Law, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. I was a little confused for a second because the intro wasn't playing on my screen for the podcast.
It played on my screen. It was all right. It was good. It was good. Yeah. I think it's just your computer. I think it's just your computer and your internet.
Yeah, it probably is my internet. My internet has been acting a little funky, but I'm still connected right now.
I'm wondering what the over-under is that your internet's going to die tonight.
Oh, high. Really, really, really high. I would have. I don't know. I think the number is so high that I don't think Vegas would be taking bets.
Gotcha.
Because it's just impossible to gauge. You walk into a casino, hey, I want to bet on J Law's internet. They're just gonna turn you away. Like, nope. Sorry.
Yeah, we're not in on that business.
No, we're not.
We're not about that.
We're not gonna touch that. Okay, because we don't know. It's such a wild card. We don't know.
Fair enough. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe wherever you're getting us at. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Vendetta Sports Media. Find us on Twitter at media_Vendetta. And wherever else you get your social media, wherever you get your podcast, search Vendetta Sports Media, or just go to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media, where you can join us every Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, we're going to talk everything and anything going on in the sports world right now. And right now, we're joined by Pittsburgh's own Duquesne.
Perfect timing.
Duquesne alumnus, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Josh Taylor. Woo! With us as he is every month. Second Tuesday is Josh Taylor night. Josh, how the hell are you?
I'm good. I had to switch things up. I'm in my dining room. We're kind of in the middle of moving some stuff around, and I'm also keeping an eye on the little guy. Mom is taking a much-needed night to get herself taken care of. So she's out enjoying herself, getting nice, relaxed and pampered and everything. So I'm watching the little guy. So I got him in the next room here. I got a little vision right there to the other room. And had to set everything up in the dining room. So it's a little weird. So I mean,
it works. And as soon as the kid makes a noise, as soon as you make a noise, the dog's gonna flip out and yell at you.
Oh yeah, she'll lose her mind. So that's great. I didn't realize how harsh this light was above me, but
that's all good. You're fine. You're fine.
We'll still get it in. He's good. Absolutely. He's quiet. Paw Patrol's on, so we're
there you go.
See, now my granddaughter goes puppies. She won't say Paw Patrol. It's just called puppies.
I'm waiting for the time that actually comes out of his mouth, and then my fate is probably sealed. So
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way it happens. So let's dive right in now, Josh. Last week I was throwing Hadoukens left, right, and center on this Brian Flores class action lawsuit. Now, what's crazy is that a new wrinkle has been thrown into this situation, as Lovie Smith has been announced as the Houston Texans' new head coach. Now, prior to, if you believe the reports that came out, prior to the class action lawsuit, the Texans were either going to go with Josh McCown or Brian Flores. Now, if I'm Brian Flores, I definitely pull the trigger on the class action lawsuit because if you have to choose between me and Josh McCown, I don't even think I want the job.
Let's start smaller than that. If I have to choose between going to Houston, who just fired their last head coach for God knows what reason, or filing a class action lawsuit against the NFL, give me the class action lawsuit.
Exactly.
That's how bad
True.
I don't want to go to Houston.
Yeah.
I literally had this discussion earlier today. For the record, this is my second show of the day, so my voice gets scratchy. Forgive me. I did Locked on Steelers podcast with my guy Chris Carter.
Nice.
And I had this discussion earlier today. If there's two organizations I do not want to touch with the 10-foot pole right now, one of them is Miami and the other one is Houston. And it just so happens both of those have been linked to Brian Flores, and it's probably not a coincidence. Right. So it's for me, it's when you hear the news about Lovie Smith, I'm not even surprised. And a lot of people come off with the whole, oh, well, he was terrible at Houston. He was terrible at Illinois, which for the record, winning in Illinois, like,
that's impossible.
Who was the last coach that did it? Ron Zook? Like,
I think so.
Being real.
Yeah.
So, like, first of all, that's hard to do. Second of all, if you're going to point to that, fine, but also point to his NFL resume.
Right.
This is a guy who got a team directed by Rex Grossman
to a
Super Bowl.
Rex Grossman of all people.
So that's what I'm thinking of all day.
If we're going to talk about what Lovie Smith's resume looks like, you can't leave that part out.
No, you cannot.
He was in the first Super Bowl that was coached by two African-American coaches. It was him versus Tony Dungy.
Yep.
So if we're going to sit here and talk about what he's done and what he hasn't done, and here's another thing, and this is the thing I come back to. When I heard his name, I thought to myself, okay, this is what they're doing. They needed a convenient name.
Yep.
They needed a convenient
name. That was actually going to be my next question.
So it became a marriage of convenience to hire Lovie Smith. Not too dissimilar from how it was a marriage of convenience to hire David Culley. Because let's not kid ourselves. Do we really think they hired David Culley with the intent of having them there for a longer period of time?
No.
Of course not.
Not even.
David Culley was a marriage of convenience just as much as Jackson. You'll appreciate this reference. John L. Smith, 2012 Arkansas, marriage of convenience. Am I wrong?
You are 100% correct.
Marriage of convenience. They knew David Culley was not going to have a shot working anywhere else, and David Culley knew this was his only opportunity to get a head coaching job because he had never been offered one before. Same thing with John L. Smith in Arkansas in 2012. And I can say this because I was there reporting on the team at the time. Bobby Petrino gets fired. They needed somebody because he got fired in April. You need a head coach in the middle of spring ball when spring ball is about to wrap up. If it hasn't wrapped up already, you need a guy to keep things as smooth sailing as possible. So what did they do? They went to, I believe it was Utah State was where he was. Either Utah State or Weber State. I can't remember. They plucked John L. Smith out to be their head coach because he was their special teams coach the year before at Arkansas. He was the guy that was going to create the most continuity. Nothing else would change. The offense would stay the same. The defense would stay the same. The players knew who he was, and everybody respected him. They brought that guy in. Everybody was happy, and it worked for a year. And that's all it needed to do was work for a year because John L. Smith was not going to get another shot at a Power 5 coaching job, and everybody knew it. And Arkansas needed a guy to hold them over for 1 year until they found their next guy, and everybody knew it. That's exactly what that was. Lovie Smith feels like another marriage of convenience. It shouldn't have to be that Lovie Smith gets hired because the Texans had to make a knee-jerk reaction in response to a lawsuit that Brian Flores filed. It shouldn't have to feel that way. Lovie Smith probably should have gotten another crack at the league anyway.
He should have been back in the league at least 3 or 4 years ago.
Let me put it to you this way. Who are you giving another shot first, Lovie Smith or Adam Gase?
Lovie Smith, without question.
I have a biased answer to that. I think it's the correct answer, and everyone would agree with, but mine is definitely biased.
Well, who else?
You're not wrong. Well, now, what are your thoughts on the Brian Flores camp releasing their statement after Lovie Smith was announced? Now, I kind of looked at that as a little bit of backhanded shade being thrown, just a little bit. That was right up there with the thanks bill.
Oh yeah,
that was in a thanks bill. That was definitely a thanks bill.
100%.
Yeah, it felt like backhanded shade to me too. And the thing is, if I'm Brian Flores, I might not want to admit being considered for the Houston job. Once again, maybe it's just me. And if you're in this position, some people might say beggars can't be choosers. But I think if nothing else, this should serve as a wake-up call to black assistant head coaches or guys that are head coaches now that might, well, actually, there's two that are head coaches now. I guess
it's technically three.
Well, three.
And I want to talk about Mike McDaniel in a minute.
And Mike McDaniel should get another opportunity should this one in Miami fail. I'm not going to comment whether or not it will. You guys put 2 and 2 together and get whatever answer you want. Jackson, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you aspire to be a NFL head coach and you're a black head coach right now, the one thing you should have in the back of your mind after all this is over, after all this is said and done, be very careful about what situations you pick. Because it's to the point now, there are too many jobs that have been extended to black head coaches in nearly impossible situations where they are expected to go above and beyond and do damn near impossible. And they do relatively well compared to what was expected of them. And then they lose the job anyway. Not because they were that bad, not because the team didn't improve, but because it was a situation that wasn't going to get any better regardless of what that coach did. And there's few examples of where the coach actually performed ahead of his expectations and still lost the job. Jim Caldwell is the best example, and he did it in 2 different places and lost the job both times. And it's just like, well, what more did that man have to do in order to retain the job that he had? He went to a Super Bowl with Indianapolis. Peyton Manning's neck goes bad, misses the whole season. They go 2-14, tank for Andrew Luck, and then all of a sudden Jim Caldwell's gone. Well, how is that his fault?
Right.
How is it his fault that the quarterbacks he had to choose from were Dan Orlovsky, Curtis Painter, and a 38-year-old Kerry Collins? How is that Jim Caldwell's fault? That's not Jim Caldwell's fault. How should he have to coach with that kind of situation? How should David Culley have to try to coach a team in Houston where his best option at quarterback by the end of the season is Davis Mills? Seriously?
He made Mills look pretty good at the end of the year too.
They got that. Really, honestly, they got chicken salad out of chicken. You know the rest of the term going through the rest of the season. They did. With Davis Mills at quarterback. David Culley got that much out of that team, and people can say what they want looking at the record. He had that team fighting by the end of the year.
Oh,
he
absolutely.
had that team fighting and competing, just like Brian Flores had his team fighting and competing after starting the season 1-7.
Right.
He had that team still fighting and competing. It is so hard to be in that position and not lose a locker room. I think it was Dave Wannstedt that said it. You can lose games, just don't lose the locker room. Right. David Culley never lost that locker room. Even Dan Campbell, to his credit, never lost Detroit's locker room. Brian Flores never lost Miami's locker room. So you got guys that are doing jobs that are damn near impossible, and now people want to just kick to the curb because they didn't do good enough in the fans' eyesight. Well, look at everything in context. It's the Houston freaking Texans. Your best receiver got shipped off. Your best defensive player got shipped off, and your quarterback is in the middle of how many sexual assault allegations? What did you think was going to happen?
27.5.
Exactly. What do you think is going to happen? Brian, I asked this question so many times. You've probably heard me ask this question while I'm working, whether it's on TV or radio. When I get questions from fans about how this team failed to do this and how this group failed to do that, my answer is always the same. I answer a question with the question. What were your expectations? What were Miami's expectations of Brian Flores? Yep. What were Houston's expectations of David Culley? And what are their expectations going to be of Lovie Smith? Are they going to be realistic? My answer to that is a resounding hell no. They're not going to be realistic. And somehow he'll fall short of some expectations that weren't realistic to begin with, and we'll look at Lovie Smith as a failure. And that makes absolutely no sense. It just becomes a recurring cycle, which brings me back around when we talk about Steeler fans. Oh, Mike Tomlin this, Mike Tomlin that. Mike Tomlin had a quarterback in his late 30s coming off of elbow surgery. What did you think was going to happen?
Oh, you getting some love here.
What did you think was going to happen?
You're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. And
for the record, Mike Tomlin with that defense that people claim failed so much did this in 10 games last season. 10 different games last season, that defense held their opponent to 20 points or less, and that team had an even or positive turnover margin. And they went 9-0-1 in those games. So they went to the playoffs because of that defense, despite having a 38-year-old quarterback off of elbow surgery that massively underperformed.
With an offensive line that couldn't block. With an offensive line that
could not block for a first-round draft pick who became a Pro Bowler. But somehow that defense failed. And I'm sitting there looking, what were your expectations?
Right.
Because
and I even said during my live tweets, if the offense can't help keep their defense off the field, they are going to gas each and every time. I don't care. You could have Lawrence Taylor out there with TJ Watt and Greg Lloyd on the other side of them. Guess what? If they still have to breathe.
And what was that first quarter, that first 20 minutes of that game in Cincinnati? The first 20 minutes of game time, that defense shut out Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
And then some.
And then they fell apart.
They fell apart. Why? Because the offense could not stay on the field and sustain a drive.
How
do you sustain a drive? Running game.
Here's the ironic part. The defense technically fell apart because they provided the first points of the game for the team and then had to go back out in the field after scoring a defensive touchdown.
Oh my God!
They actually took the lead in the game.
If I were TJ Watt,
because they took the lead in the game because they're doing two different sides of the ball's work. Of course, they got tired.
If I was TJ Watt, I would have stepped out of bounds accidentally at the 20-yard line just to get 5 minutes of rest.
Just to step off and get a breather.
But you are given a lot of credit for calling Terrell Austin as the Steelers' defensive coordinator. Now, here's the thing. Now, here in Pittsburgh, though, we knew that was going to happen.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
I had the idea that it was going to happen, but then it's like, why is it taking so long? And once it started to take so long, then it's like, oh, now what's going to happen? And then it's like, no, he's going to be. I swear, I think they did that just to mess with everybody. But
they do that. They do that primarily because the Steelers take their time when it comes to hiring coaches. They've never really, rushed or really ran the ticket to the podium to hire a guy. Plus, it gave them time to really assess the coaching market out there because there were other guys available. Patrick Graham was there. They brought him in for an interview. I think what they do is they take the time and they bring external candidates in. They interview these guys and they give them opportunity to say, hey, maybe someone will blow us away outside of the guy they had in mind. And there was one time that they did that 15 years ago, and that outside guy blew them away. He just so happened he was a defensive coordinator for the Vikings, a really, really young guy. They had a guy in mind. They had a couple in-house guys in mind, but this young defensive coordinator from Minnesota blew their mind, and they hired him to be their head coach. His name was Mike Tomlin. It happens every once in a while. Every once in a while, you will have a situation where they will bring folks in and the guy might blow them away and say, you know what, we'll go with that guy. In this case, I think they looked at every single option and said, you know what, we're going to stick with our guy, and I think they're going to do that. Now, there's another situation that I think is brewing where an outside guy might catch their attention and maybe they make that guy the hire. It's going to be interesting. I want to see what happens with this whole situation with the GM hire. They brought in Louis Riddick for an interview. At least he was scheduled to be in Pittsburgh for an interview. I'm curious to see how that goes because while we're talking about me calling Terrell Austin a while back to be the next defensive coordinator, that was really easy to see because the Steelers have a history of bringing in guys outside, making the position coaches, and then elevating them to a coordinator position because it creates continuity. The players already know them, and there isn't much turnover or change when that guy comes in. The transition's just smoother. So it wasn't like it was that big of a surprise. They've been doing that with offensive coordinators for the last couple of decades. They did it on the defensive side. Dick LeBeau was not hired originally to be the team's defensive coordinator. They hired him in 1992 as the secondary coach. He coached 3 years under Don Capers. Capers got hired in Carolina as head coach. They promoted Dick LeBeau to be the defensive coordinator. And this was after he had been at Cincinnati where he created the zone blitz defense to counter the West Coast offense against the 49ers in the Super Bowl. So this is all that wrapped into this. The Steelers have been doing this for literally decades. So I wish I could say, yeah, I saw this coming. I mean, granted, I did, but a lot of it's just because I pay attention and I read the teams.
Right.
But
do you think Terrell Austin calls any plays, or do you think it's still going to be Tomlin's show?
It depends on how much Mike Tomlin trusts Terrell Austin. And I don't think he has any reason not to trust Terrell Austin. Because if we want to be totally technical here, Terrell Austin's been a defensive coordinator for longer than Mike Tomlin has.
Right.
He's had more defensive coordinator jobs than Mike Tomlin has. He's had more secondary jobs in the NFL than Mike Tomlin has. And he's taken 3 different secondaries to the Super Bowl. So we can say what we want. Terrell Austin's resume is extensive enough to where I think he has earned the benefit of the doubt. He didn't have the kind of resume that Keith Butler had. Keith Butler hadn't been a coordinator before he was promoted to defensive coordinator for the Steelers. He had only been a linebackers coach at that level.
Right. And I think that the only reason why Butler got put into that coordinator spot was, like, as you said, continuity.
It's continuity. And he had already been there for a while before Mike Tomlin got there. Remember, he had been considered the heir apparent under Dick LeBeau for some time before Mike Tomlin showed up. Everybody had pretty much understood, okay, Dick LeBeau's defense is great, but if he steps aside, Keith Butler's going to be the guy. It was pretty much understood here, and Brian, you know as much. It had been that way for a good while.
Absolutely.
So Mike Tomlin gets here, and everything seems to be that way. And it also doesn't hurt that Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler had a history. They had coached together at a couple of different places. So the fact that they had a history together, it really just became hand in glove. It was really no big deal. Now you're talking about a different situation where Terrell Austin got hired before the 2019 season after being in Cincinnati in 2018. He comes in, and this is the thing that people aren't paying attention to because, folks don't do their homework. But 2019, Terrell Austin shows up. He starts coaching that secondary and get some different things out of him. That secondary got like 12 interceptions. And that secondary in Pittsburgh doesn't get interceptions often, pretty much since Troy Polamalu left.
Right.
All of a sudden in 2019, this defense is tops in the league in turnovers. They're tops in the league in sacks. They're fifth in the league in points allowed in yards, and they're ninth in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best defenses in the league.
Right.
And no one knows why it happened. I know why it happened. Terrell Austin. Because he has an emphasis on raising your turnover margin and being stronger in the red zone as opposed to the other 80 yards of the field. That is something that he has dwelled on for a long time. It's something that it was an emphasis for him in Detroit. So when you see this team go from minus 11 in turnover margin in 2017 to 2018, I should say, to plus 8 in turnover margin in 2019, Terrell Austin probably had a lot to do with that. So when we're talking about his qualifications for the job, I would like to think, and I'm not the only one that feels this way, I think if anybody has earned the benefit of the doubt to be a defensive coordinator, I think it's Terrell Austin.
Well, now I want you to comment on one thing. We only got 3 minutes because we got to get ready to take a break. Do you think, with all that pedigree that you just mentioned, Tomlin has been the head coach here in Pittsburgh now 15 years. He's going into his 16th season. Do you think in another 2 to 5 years, we see Terrell Austin get promoted to head coach if Tomlin decides to walk away at year 20?
That's way too hard to call right now. And that's simply for a couple of different reasons. One, you're thinking 2 to 5 years down the road, Mike Tomlin may still be here 2 to 5 years. I mean, whether or not Mike Tomlin leaves is going to be simply up to Mike Tomlin. That's a question for Mike Tomlin to answer. I don't know if I can answer that one because the way the Steelers have had that kind of faith and continuity with their coaches, that pretty much is going to be a decision that he probably is going to make unless things get that far out of hand. And even then, they'll probably let his contract expire and he'd bow out gracefully. It's just how they operate.
Right.
But I will say this much. If you're talking about a situation where, you're looking at the future, I would expect, and this is just me, as we just talked about the situation with hiring external guys, a head coaching move is going to be a little bit different because Bill Cowher is an external guy. He came from Kansas City. Chuck Noll was an external guy. I want to say he came from Baltimore. He coached under Don Shula. We're talking about external guys getting those opportunities. So I don't think that's as guaranteed because it doesn't really fit the Steelers' MO. And I don't think the next head coach is currently on this coaching staff, primarily because the guys that are there are a lot older and probably aren't as on the same kind of career track. And secondly, because if it's going to happen, I don't think it would be that immediate.
All right, fair enough.
So I don't think that would be fair.
All right, well, you know what? I want to talk a little bit more about Mike McDaniel because that seems like another very, very interesting, convenient hire. But I want to take a break right now because it's going to get lengthy. We're going to be right back here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show, broadcasting live here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. We're joined, as we are every second Tuesday of the month, by the great Josh Taylor. We'll be right back.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. In case you hadn't heard, your favorite Renegade Sports Media Group has its own Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media to support our efforts to continuously bring you sports, gaming, and other media coverage as only we can. We've got 4 different membership tiers. For $3 a month, we'll give you a simple thank you on our Patreon site. For $6 a month, you get a thank you And you get to become a recruit in Jackson Law's Vendetta University Gaming Series. For $10 a month, you get everything from the previous tiers, a special thank you at the end of our videos, free access to our upcoming Discord chat, and a free koozie after 4 months. And then the big dog, $50 a month, gets you everything from the previous tiers, as well as opportunities for Fantasy League invites, stream gaming, possible invites to mock NFL and NBA draft sessions, a once-a-month Google Hangout, and after 4 months, a free t-shirt. Yeah! Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media and help us to improve our pledge to bring you the best sports, gaming, and other media coverage.
All right, we're back here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show. We are broadcasting live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media, where you will reach us every Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But make sure you subscribe, because guess what? We're also doing we have other shows on here as well. We have Ask Uncle Trey, who he does that every now and again, but we also do our live streams. Matter of fact, Chad Bauman's been doing his Pokemon stream the last couple of weeks. What's it called? Pokemon?
No. I was just trying to act like an old person,
Gotcha.
The Pikachus and the Pokemans.
Yeah, the Pikachu. I'll peek the chews. I'll peek it. All right. Oh man. So with that being said, of course, and we're joined by Joe Compton of Go Indy Now. Shout out to Joe Compton. I think it's been a month now straight that Joe's been joining us, so I'm pretty excited about that. All right, so she's cool. She's all right. I'm not disappointed. Yeah, it's been very, very interesting. We've had a very Joe missed last week. Okay, never mind. So let's restart the streak, just like the Undertaker. Oh wait, never mind. But no, so it's been a very, very interesting month actually for interns, Josh Taylor. Now as I told you, we use your appearance on That's Some Cheese as a benchmark for our intern quiz. The interns are supposed to watch that episode, answer a series of 10 questions, and then we have a discussion about it.
I'm trying to remember what we talked about that episode that became so worthy of quizzing interns.
I'll send you I'll send you the link to it. I'll send you the link to it.
When did that become a source of knowledge? This is news to me.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. And what's been funny though is that the interns that succeed have really take what you said to heart, and they're really putting forth the effort. But we have had some that kind of been missing the mark. And today we lost one because. Oh boy, it was
gotta pour one out.
Yeah, it was just bad from the word go. It was just bad from the word go. Like here's the thing, Josh, and I want to ask you this: as someone you've interned, you talked about being successful in the sports world, and a lot of the things that Trey and I have been telling a lot of these young folks is that this is a very cutthroat business, and if you do not come correct with your communication, with attention to detail, you are not going to succeed. You're lucky if you just get fired. You're lucky that, because honestly, they could just regulate you to the mailroom and then you're stuck for forever. Now, so this is what happened with this individual. Now, I have a particular way that I want it done because I want to see if they can follow directions. So I have a page set up on the Vendetta Sports Media page. It's where you go there, you watch the video, and then I have very clear, explicit instructions on how I want it, from formatting to all of it. The individual that we lost today, we got rid of today, first of all, when he sent it, no fault of his own, it went to my spam folder. So I said, resend it. Sent it to me twice in the wrong format.
Oh.
That's strike one. I said I wanted it in Word, sent it as a PDF. This is why I wanted it in Word, because people primarily will have Microsoft Word. Not everyone has a PDF reader because it's considered extra. So then, we look to go about making the, getting everything situated. This individual did absolutely nothing at all, took on no assignments, was not active in the Slack, didn't answer anything in the company Slack. And then when he was asked, have you done, like, I was like, well, why haven't you done anything? Oh, well, I thought I had to wait until I had my quiz assessment. It's like, why would you think that you had to wait to have your quiz? You don't see all of your fellow interns getting assignments thrown to them. Are you paying attention to anything? Obviously, the answer is no. Was he the head coach of the Dolphins? Might as well have been. Might as well have been. And we're going to talk about that. No, I don't want to use Google Docs because I don't use Google. I only use Google Docs for one thing, and that's for my other podcasts. I don't use Google Docs for anything else, and I have a particular reason for that. So either way, so this person was like, I was like, so how many hours do you need to be doing to get your hours? I think I need about 8 or 10. And I asked Trey, so how many hours does he need? I'm like, you're going to have to put in 40-hour weeks, dude, to even remotely catch up. And it's like, all because you chose not to communicate. But he's trying to talk over me during the interview to defend himself. And I told him flat out, it seems to me like you're only staying quiet enough so you can talk. That ain't going to work, my dude. And if I'm keeping you waiting in the Zoom room, guess what? I called the meeting. You wait for me. I don't wait for you. Apparently, he didn't know how it worked, Josh. So even though he knew how to answer the questions based off of your appearance, he just ain't get it. Yeah, he might have been the coach of the Browns. He might have been Hugh Jackson's intern. He told Hugh Jackson he was getting paid to throw games, but actually he was just getting pogs.
Poor Hugh Jackson.
Poor Hugh. Hugh wanted so bad. He was like, all right, baby, it's Hugh's time to shine. Hugh went on Roland Martin and did some mouth running too. And then all of his stuff came back. And it's like, Hugh, go sit down.
Poor Hugh Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people say that they were inspired by what you had to say in that. They really were. So
that's cool, man. That's like one of the most awesome kind of compliments.
Inspiring the youths out here.
Honestly, man, I'm not done yet. I got the beginning of the Josh Taylor College speaking tour returns next week.
There you go.
Nice.
I'm speaking to 2 different classes next week, and I probably I know at one point I'll be at Duquesne next week talking to a class for a good buddy of mine. We were classmates at Duquesne together. He's a professor there now, Bob Healy. And then I'll also be the day after, I'll be at Waynesburg University for a good chunk of the day, between talking to students and kind of dealing with some of the stuff that goes on down there. They do a lot with as far as their communications department and some of the productions they put on. So it's really, really cool. I'll be kind of sitting on in that too. And then March, I'll be at La Roche University, Brian, talking to some of the students out there. So it's kind of become a thing now where they're like, hey, come talk to the students.
Everyone talks about the Belichick tree, the Shanahan tree. 10, 15 years, we're going to be throwing in the Josh Taylor tree.
There you go.
Also, as well.
Hey, there's a mini Josh Taylor tree blossoming right now. I got a few folks out there doing some things.
Yeah, Josh Taylor's going to end up taking my job.
Shout out to Andrew Holman. It's weird because they're not necessarily like TV or broadcasting, but shout out to Andrew Holman. He's with the Bucks in their PR department. I got a handful of former interns doing some things here. Jose Negron is one of my former interns at Triple Live Radio. He's crushing it as a high school sports reporter with one of the newspapers here. I had another former intern at the Trib, Elaine Getzenberg. She's covering the Bills now for ESPN. So
nice.
I got a little mini Josh Taylor tree starting.
There you go.
It's kind of cool.
Josh Taylor is going to end up taking my job here. I'm going to be regulated to strictly human resources. I'm never going to be on air again. As soon as that government check come in, Trey's gonna be like, Josh, I'm gonna hire.
We're gonna start calling you behind the scenes Brian now.
I don't know, man. It depends on what the guy in the next room thinks. You know, if he allows me the time, because he's over here throwing me a couple subtle hints. So,
oh boy.
All right,
so let's talk about the Mike McDaniel hire. You want to talk about a hiring of convenience, and of course, Joe Compton of Go Indy Now. You'll meet him in April. He'll be here in April for the wedding. And he always loves it when you're on. He definitely makes it a point. Actually, I think he started really kicking back into the show when you started coming on regularly.
Joe, I appreciate it, man. Looking forward to talking to you.
So let's talk more about
and
this
Trey for that matter. If
and
Trey's
Trey,
here,
Trey. I'm not even bothering to send Trey an invitation. I'm just going to tell him when to be here.
So you say Trey's just going to just show up at wedding crash?
Trey's just going to show up and crash the wedding.
Okay. Right.
Try to make out with one of Sharon's cousins.
Oh man.
So
it's all your business, Trey. Jeez.
Yeah, I am about throwing this shit out there. So this Mike McDaniel hire. Now, this is the issue that I had with this. As soon as, they didn't say, we've hired Mike McDaniel to be our head coach. It's multiracial Mike McDaniel. And then he's got to defend his ethnicity to the trolls.
I felt really bad for him on Twitter when that announcement got hired. Like people were trying to dox his family and trying to figure out, is this man really, half black and his dad is an African-American. So it's stay out of his personal life.
He's Mike McDaniel. He's not Rachel Dolezal. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Leave this is what made me mad about that. Number one, and Josh, this is something that you can speak to. It gets really tiring and frustrating and annoying to have to always be told to present your black card. It's old. It's absolutely old. And I'm sorry, light-skinned, people that identify as black that are light-skinned, they have gotten it so horrible. It's not even funny. There's to let you into the back door, Jackson. There is racism within the black community.
He's not wrong.
The lighter you are, the more hate you get, but the darker you are, the more hatred you get. You got to be right smack dab in the comfortable melanin middle. Otherwise,
the paper bag test is usually
it's the paper bag test.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and it's really upsetting, and I feel for Mike McDaniel. I really do. Honestly, I really hope that Mike McDaniel is actually really, really successful, so that he can sort of give a middle finger to those people. But at the same token, I'm looking at the man's resume. He was an intern in Denver in 2005, offensive assistant in Houston, 06 to 08. And then he went to the UFL, the AFL, the United Football League, the UFL. He was a running backs coach there for 2 seasons. Then he came back to the NFL for another 2 seasons as an offensive assistant, and then was moved over to wide receivers coach. So he was in Washington for 3 seasons. Wide receivers coach in Cleveland.
They have a name now. We can call them the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Washington Commanders.
Call them a name now. It's no longer just Washington.
Which isn't terrible.
I kind of wish it would have been the Red Tails, but Commanders.
I agree. I wanted to see Red Tails too. I thought it would have been kind of, it
would have been nice.
Frowned upside down, if you will.
Yeah. It would have been nice to sort of give some love to, but okay.
Yeah, I thought that would have been a great historical reference too, because interesting sidebar. The most interesting or the most colorful names for organizations are the ones that kind of have some kind of regional historical significance or kind of, link, if you will. I thought that would have fit perfectly. But at the same time, Commanders does too. The Capitals and the Nationals, they have that same kind of link to Washington. They have that connotation. It makes sense.
The only team that doesn't seem to fit in that area now is the Wizards.
Then again, they were previously the Bullets, so maybe that was a little bit too accurate, and that was part of the problem.
Way too accurate for DC.
To each his own. But all that said,
so McDaniel was also the wide receivers coach in Cleveland, and then he spent 2 seasons as an offensive assistant in Atlanta, run game coordinator for 3 seasons, and then an offensive coordinator. So he's paid his dues in a sense. And of course, in a sense, he's kind of paid his dues, but he had 1 season as an offensive coordinator, and the San Francisco 49ers offense was pretty on point this season.
For what they had to work with.
They were pretty on point. So
I would always respect an offense that knows how to utilize what they have, and they do it creatively, and it works, and they're able to continue to generate success with it. So I'll always have respect for that. Here's where I'm torn on this hire.
Okay.
I'm torn on this hire because yes, they made a minority hire, the Dolphins did. And if we're talking about like satisfying the need for minority coaches in the league, I guess that's something that you look at and say, okay, at least it's one more added to the column.
Right.
Circumstances surrounding it being ridiculous, but still, it is what it is.
Right.
However,
Mhm.
I feel like there are other minority candidates, Black, Hispanic, or otherwise, who probably have a little bit more experience, that are probably a little bit more prepared for that job, and it's a little bit disappointing to see those guys not get it. But at the same time, I understand why he was the guy that they wanted, because it continues to follow a trend. There is a trend around the league. Jackson, I know you've seen it. Brian, I know you've seen it. If you even had lunch or worked a single job or used an aerosol can other than directed within 150 feet of a Shanahan or Sean McVay, you're probably going to get a coaching job.
Right.
Why? Because NFL owners cannot be counted on to be somewhat creative in how they hire coaches, or they can't be counted upon to establish some sort of standard of, this is what we want as a coach, because this is our identity as an organization. And the same organizations keep having to hire coaches every 3 or 4 years because A, they don't know who they are, and B, they don't know who they want as a coach. So it continues to be a matter of, hey, let's go find a guy that looks a lot like this. Let's go find a guy whose offense looks a lot like that. Oh, Sean McVay guy? Oh, Shanahan guy? Okay, fine. Let's go bring this guy in. As opposed to, hey, let's bring a guy in that fits what we have, that has a philosophy that fits the players that we have, or should be, well-versed enough or experienced enough or respected enough to come in and be able to lead this group of men from the moment he walks in the door.
Right.
For some odd reason, that isn't a criteria, and they're not able to figure that out through a hiring process. Why? I'll leave you guys to sort that out. But I'll say this. It's the same teams going through the same motions in the same time periods every 3 or 4 years, and it's always teams in the bottom half, if not the bottom, 2/3 of the league. And it happens all the time. Am I saying Mike McDaniel's doomed to fail? No. What I am saying is this, and I hope not for his sake that he's not, because at the end of the day, we could talk what we want about X's and O's and jobs and things like this. These are still people's livelihoods. So for Mike McDaniel to take on this challenge of going to Miami, mazel tov, more power to him. Right. But at the same time, part of me hopes he is not another minority coach put in position to fail, because I feel like Lovie Smith is in that boat. I felt like David Culley was in that boat. I felt like Robert Saleh, Arab American head coach in the NFL with the Jets. I feel like he's in that position to fail every day being with the Jets.
Right.
I feel like any coach that gets hired at the Jets is going to be in a position to fail.
I feel like most minority coaches, Mike Tomlin excluded, and Mike Tomlin and Ron Rivera excluded, are basically put in positions to fail just so they could say, see, we tried.
And here's where, remember a while back we talked about Mike Tomlin's reaction when he was asked about USC and college jobs and things like that? Mm-hmm. Remember the reaction he gave?
Yes, he
Remember
did.
The description he gave of the job that he had? Mm-hmm. I have one of the best jobs in all of professional sport. Is it making sense now to everybody? Do you see why he doesn't want to leave? Because he's with an organization that gives him a leash to fail and then try to regroup and succeed again. And what has it resulted in? 15 years of being one of the best coaches in the league. You can say what you want about the playoff record in the last few years. Yes, he's missed the mark. Every coach goes through dry spells. Even Belichick had one. Chuck Noll had one after he won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. It doesn't make it failure. It makes it the law of averages. Because when you've been to 2 Super Bowls in a 6-year span, and you win one, and you don't go back to one for a couple of years after that, that's not necessarily failure. It's the law of averages. It's hard to go to a Super Bowl twice, or I should say it's hard to go once, much less win one, much less get there a second time, much less get there a third time. Because of all the coaches in the league, there are 3 that have been there at least twice. No, take that back. 4 that have been there at least twice. Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and Pete Carroll. That's it.
That's it.
That is all. It's
and
not
how many fan bases,
especially when one keeps doing it over and over again, and Bill Belichick.
And how many fan bases would kill to have Mike Tomlin's record? The Giants would.
22 or 23 would take him right now.
The Giants would. The Dolphins would. The Lions would. Joe said it would. Now,
if you know, you know, Pittsburgh folks.
If you know, you know.
Now,
USC would. Joe Compton said USC
would. No,
absolutely.
It stands to reason. And there's a reason why after he made that statement, he says, why is no one asking Sean Payton about this? Why is no one asking Andy Reid about this? Because they've been given a leash to succeed and fail, as most black coaches in the league have not. And you're talking about one of the 3 top successful guys in the league. Oh, well, maybe he'll take a college job. Why would he want to leave for a college job? He's got a better job than the 2 other guys he talked about. He's got a better job than Peyton and a better job than Reid. And I understand coaching Patrick Mahomes is a great thing. But in terms of continuity with your franchise and those people having the faith in you over time, I'm sorry. 3 head coaches in 3 decades?
3 to 4
That's
decades,
as good as it gets as far as continuity goes. That's as good as it gets as far as job security goes. This is why he said what he said, because he has already gotten to the point where an organization took a chance on him. The guy, like I said before, the guy who came in from the outside that they had no reason to put that much faith in. But apparently he had said something that they liked and they put that faith in him. Yep. And 15 years later, he has won 64% of his games and has been to 2 Super Bowls and won 1, which I will reiterate once again, he is only one of 4 coaches to get to 2 Super Bowls twice and still coaching. That says a lot, because when you're able to win 64% of your games, that means you're doing something right. Oh, you got to win games in the playoffs. Yeah, no kidding. We know all that.
But guess what? You got to win in the regular season before you can do that.
Thank you. The thing that gets you into the postseason is winning a large majority of your games in the regular season.
Right.
Anybody who does math knows this. If you don't win 9 to 10 games, you're not getting in. On average, you're not getting in. So that means you got to win somewhere between 9 to 10 games or more per season pretty much every year. And he's come close to doing that over a 15-year span. He's never lost fewer than 8. Do you know how hard that is?
That is impossible unless you're playing Madden.
And considering the fact the last time he won 8 games and lost 8, his quarterbacks were 6 quarters of Ben Roethlisberger pre-elbow surgery, Mason Rudolph, and a guy playing in the CFL who was about to start a duck hunting podcast. Those were his 3 quarterbacks. And that defense in 2019, which was, by the way, Terrell Austin's first year, was top 5 in points and yards, led the league in takeaways, led the league in sacks.
Unless you're in the NFC East.
Point taken.
Point very well taken.
A couple of years ago in the NFC West. What year was that? The Seattle won the division. Was it Seattle or the Rams that won the division with seven wins?
Seattle. That was Seattle.
Same thing about the NFC West a couple of years ago.
So now let's go down this list of hires real quick, because I want to jump to some of the NBA stuff before. I want to finish up one other thing of the NFL before we go into the NBA and finish out, because I have to go buy a new suit. All right, so I want to go through. I want to get our thoughts really, really quick on the hirings as we have right now. I want to start with you, Jackson, and then Josh, I want you to take it home. All right, Dennis Allen, new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. How do you feel about that?
I honestly don't know too much about Dennis Allen. I'm a keep it a buck. I don't know too much about who he is and what he's done. I know. We were talking about it some yesterday in Slack. He was a former coach with the Raiders. That's about really the extent.
Yep.
I know. I didn't even see the announcement of the hire. I just casually mentioned, and it's like, the Saints job is still vacant. And it's like, nah, that's already been taken up. They already announced who it was. And it's like, I never saw the tweet from Schefter. So I honestly don't have too much to say here.
Now, Josh, take it home and then explain to me why one of the top offensive coordinators in football, Eric Bieniemy, didn't get this job.
This is one of the few that I'm not upset about. I shouldn't say not upset about, but it's one of the few that doesn't catch me off guard. Okay. Because if there's a job for a coach and a guy getting that opportunity, I'm not going to complain about Dennis Allen.
Okay.
Just like there's a couple other hires I'm not going to complain about, because that guy probably should have gotten an opportunity already. I'm not going to complain about Dennis Allen getting hired, because Dennis Allen has experience as a head coach. Yes, it was with the Raiders. Yes, they didn't do too well. But once again, it was the Raiders. You got to remember that in context. Another one of those teams that seems to be looking for a coach every few years. Take from that whatever you will. Maybe there's a reason behind that. You be the judge. But
I remember that. You be the judge. I remember
Right.
that NFL films. Yeah.
But besides the fact that he has experience as a head coach, successful or unsuccessful is a different story. He also has a very good rapport in that organization. They love him in New Orleans.
It's another instance of continuity, right?
Continuity, exactly. Now you see where I'm going with this. It's continuity. Yep. The players respect him. DeMario Davis did an interview on Colin Cowherd, I believe it was last week, and they talked about the possibility of Dennis Allen being hired to replace Sean Payton, and he really liked the possibility of that idea. It's one thing when you're bringing a guy in out of nowhere that has a resume that's like you can write on the back of a napkin, that's really thin. He has no head coaching experience, no real exposure to the league, and no real history, no real relationships built. Dennis Allen is not that. Dennis Allen has experience. He's had a lot of time in this league. He has relationships with the players. He has relationships with the organization. And it seems like, given the timing of it all, they felt like this was the best guy to bring in to keep things going. And if the players are telling you, hey, we're okay with this guy, that's the thing you listen to. Because the players got to go play for him.
Right.
So if you tell me the leader of that defense or one of the leaders of that defense says, hey, we'd love to have that guy here, considering the fact that he coaches the defense, I'm not going to argue with that because clearly that's a move that makes sense. So I don't hate the Dennis Allen hire.
All right, Brian Daboll to the New York Giants, Jackson Law. Now keep in mind, the Giants are one of the teams that were named in Brian Flores' class action lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, I like the hire. I like the coach. I think really just kind of the big thing for New York, I feel like New York just kind of needs to blow it up. The Giants need to blow it up. They need to see if there's any value in Saquon's ginormous, thunderous thighs that they could get some draft picks out of for something. I think it was the nail in the coffin this past season that Daniel Jones just isn't the guy. He's missed a lot of times with injuries, and the times that he's been there really hasn't been anything special to see from him. So I think he's in for a rebuild job, but I mean, he's helped shape Josh Allen into the type of player he was. Now, I did hear some people say, was Josh Allen, Josh Allen already had like all the talent, everything was there. He just needed help with his decision making and to get settled into the NFL. He was always going to be that. And it's like, you could say that, you could say not, but he was a key part of it. And so maybe he's a quarterback whisperer, and maybe, I don't know if this is necessarily the draft that the Giants want to pick a quarterback in. Maybe they do, I don't know, but there's other positions that they would probably need to grab up first with their, what do they have, like 2 first-round picks, like in the top 15, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they should go a different route other than quarterback, and they'll probably keep Danny Dimes for one more season, because I believe ownership or the front office has said that they want one more year with Daniel Jones. But I think he's got a lot of potential, and I think deserving of a head coaching job. It's just like you mentioned, Brian, it's a shame that kind of like with McDaniel, he's tied to a situation that there's a lot of controversy behind right now.
Yeah, I don't hate the hire. When you look at what he's done with Buffalo's offense, it was one of those things where, all right, it made sense to try to go with that guy because the league is trending offensive. Once again, it's a copycat league. People are trying to do the same things that other folks are doing and hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. That doesn't surprise me. I don't even mind the thought of hiring him. I don't mind the thought of hiring his pedigree. I think he's earned the opportunity because his results as a coordinator have spoken for themselves. I just don't like how it went down.
Right.
It's one of those things where when you're doing math in your math class, where you get the answer and your teacher tells you to show your work.
Oh, I always hated that.
It doesn't seem to match what you're supposed to do to get to that answer, but somehow you got to that answer. I give the Giants credit for getting the right answer, but when they had to show their work, it didn't come out right, and that's the problem.
Right.
So I don't mind the hire. It's their practices and how they go about doing what they do that are the bigger issue.
Right. All right, Matt Eberfluss to the Bears. Another guy on the defensive side of the ball showing up, and they've got a young quarterback in Justin Fields, Jackson, that's going to need some development.
Yeah, I think this hire really all depends on who he gets as his offensive coordinator. I think that's
Luke Getsy.
Luke Getsy. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He got Luke Getsy.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent on him too. I really don't know what to say about this hire. I feel like, I mean, again, young quarterback Justin Fields, he's got to. Now, the problem with Nagy seemed like he didn't want to commit fully to Justin Fields for whatever reason. He was, doing the back and forth strategy with him and Andy Dalton early on, and which I know Fields was dealing with some injury, so Dalton had to come in. Dalton dealing with injury, Fields got to come in, but it was just like, come on, man, you've already basically handed the keys to the kingdom to your young future QB, so I guess just let him run with it. But
I wish Getsy's name was Leo Getz. I really do. You know what? Real quick, because we're 1 minute, we're about 30 seconds to break.
I was going to say, actually, there's another hire I didn't mind. He's got over a decade of experience in the league. He's been a position coach. He's been a coordinator for I think 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. He's another guy that's built relationships in the league, I think, between Indianapolis and Dallas. He's been a couple of different places. He's seen how things go. The hiring of Luke Getsy as an offensive coordinator, I think, is a good one. Getsy is a guy who's been in Green Bay for a while. He was at Mississippi State briefly with Joe Moorhead, I think, as their offensive coordinator, but he was an assistant in Green Bay for a good bit. I think he's learned a good thing. And he's one of those guys where, if you don't have him coaching your offense at some point, you're going to want a guy like him in the future. Hey, Brian, by the way, Luke Getsy, Munhall kid, Steel Valley.
There you go.
But it comes down to, how much experience do you have? Apparently, he met with the Bears. He knocked it out there. The Bears have a new GM. They feel like they found their guy. I think he's done a pretty good job hiring. He also hired Chris Morgan, Steelers' former assistant offensive line coach. They're going to bring a zone blocking scheme that's going to fit that offense that Luke Getsy is coaching. So I think, as far as not just the hire itself, but everything that he's done just in that short period of time, it looks pretty good so far for Chicago.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to finish off with these coaching hires. Then we're going to jump to the NBA. We are joined here by Josh Taylor. Make sure you check him out at Josh Taylor HD on the tweet machine. But we'll be right back here on twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. It's the Tanndemonium Sports Show broadcasting live. We'll be right back.
The following broadcast is brought to you in association by XP Coffee Company. XP Coffee Company is the fresh brewed coffee made for gamers by gamers. Get amazing flavors like Choco Loco in 8, 12, or 16-ounce bags. Or level up and get Illusion, Isolation, Nightmare, or the Majestic Throne blends in light, medium, or dark roast in whole bean, coarse French press, drip, or fine espresso in 12-ounce, 16-ounce, or 2-pound bags. Wow! Shipping worldwide. If you're in the U.S., go to usa.xpcoffee.co. If you're in Europe or in the U.K., go to www.xpcoffee.co. XP Coffee Company, for gamers, by gamers.
All right, we're back here on the final segment of the Tanndemonium Sports Show, broadcasting live here on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at media_Vendetta. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Vendetta Sports Media. We're all over. All right, guys. And what's funny, a little bit behind the curtain, I just noticed that they've got some new Chuck Taylors with the airbrush of Show Nuff on the heel. I'm getting them. Ooh. I'm getting them. I don't care. And I can get them in my size. I'm getting them. I might even mess around and wear them at the wedding.
I might have to break my string of collecting Jordans to grab a pair of those Show Nuffs. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, hell yeah. Show Nuffs for life.
Not every day you can say kiss my Converse and mean it. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. That's right. And for those who know,
if you know, you know.
That's right. And if you don't know, you too young to hang out with me. Jackson, you know what we talking about?
No. What you've said sounds familiar, but
he probably knows the reference. He might have to.
He understands the reference at least. Yeah. So I'll give you half credit.
All right.
Just go watch Last Dragon.
Okay.
Go watch Last Dragon. That's your homework for the week.
Okay.
Oh, just follow Josh. We're talking wrestling at the wedding.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely. Sir. That's something I definitely want. Real quick. Now here's my thoughts, and this is what has me mad about the Royal Rumble.
All right.
Number one,
Sweet.
why couldn't I really wish Lashley could have gotten a better win. I wish he wouldn't have needed Roman Reigns. And the thing is, all he is transitioning to elimination chamber, and Lesnar's gonna win, and it's gonna be title versus
Trey, you don't
title
even play golf. Shut up. You don't even play golf.
I'm not 100% sold on that.
No?
I'm not 100% sold because here's the thing. You could have Lashley lose to Brock and make it title versus title, but at the same time, Brock already won the Royal Rumble. So if Brock loses at Elimination Chamber, he still gets to choose who he faces at WrestleMania, and he's already chosen Roman Reigns. So he's going to face Roman whether he has the belt or not.
Yeah.
I feel like it's down to two things.
Oh, the Rumble itself did suck.
The Rumble itself was terrible, and some of the details themselves were terrible, but we'll get back to that in a second.
We'll talk about
and there's
that.
one guy largely responsible for it, and thank God he's out of the way.
Shane Aloysius McMahon.
Oh, there we go. I didn't mind the Heyman turning on Brock angle. I thought that was pretty cool because I forget who it was that said they might expect a double swerve, and they actually did call that. I like the thought of Bobby getting the belt back. I felt like they tried to smash too many things together because I wanted to see Bobby Lashley have a lengthy title reign, but then Big E had the briefcase, and they made him cash it in, and
he's another one that's screwed.
And then his reign was cut short. So it's just like you had two guys you could have given long, legitimate reigns as champions, and people would have eaten it up, and you cut it short to try to smash them in together. I thought that was really dumb. My thing is, why not have Bobby Lashley hold the belt for a while? Have Big E hold the briefcase for a while, and then cash it in at WrestleMania. Why not do that? Whatever title match you had going on, have Big E cash it in, turn it into a triple threat. Big E wins. Maybe doesn't even pin Lashley. He gets the belt, and then they rematch after WrestleMania. Like you could have had that still work and been fine. So I feel like a lot of this is they're kind of just it's more, knee-jerk reaction to stuff.
I think they're trying to stay status quo. I think they're trying to stay status quo while changing things up a little at the same time first.
I think they're chasing the white rabbit. I think they're really chasing the white rabbit in terms of, okay, well, we got to do this now. We got to do this now. We got to do this now. There's a reason why the Roman Reigns storyline works. It's because he's been a champion for that long, and you've built him as this strong champion heel that for whatever reason, whether it's because you just can't beat him or you can't get past the Usos, he's the champ and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
That's why
you could easily do that with Lashley because if you would keep him,
and you could have done it with Big E.
If you keep the Hurt business together, you've got the exact same thing on the Red brand. And then why not?
And then they brought them together to break them up again,
which really upset me. Like I was ready to go back. See, I have these spurts with the business where I'm ready to go back to it. And just as I'm ready to go back to it, they pull the wool out. And I said, well, I'm done. I'm done.
The Hurt business was one of my favorite things about the whole empty arenas era of pro wrestling.
Yep.
Beside Brody Lee being revealed as the Exalted One and beside Asuka as a whole. Asuka during the entire empty arena period was just a superstar, and she was carrying the women's division. Her and Bayley, and shout out to them. Like they were just fantastic. But yeah, the Hurt business was one of my favorite things because it was a stable that we hadn't seen before. I know a lot of people thought stable of all black guys, Nation of Domination. No. This was different. You had a stable of dudes who can just come in and whoop anybody's ass and look good in suits doing it.
Right.
They dressed well. One of the big
differences.
They had a corporate type look to them. It was like, you know what? It was something.
You had brothers that were about business. They weren't a stereotype of either street thugs, clowns, or militants. It was corporate ass brothers. You know what it was? You know what it reminded me of?
Suits that will beat you down. And
it reminded me of the Holloway brothers of the Harlem National Bank. That's
not bad. That's not bad. And it was a real simple concept. Bunch of good looking dressed up brothers that would beat you down if they were pushed to it. And honestly, it was simple enough. That's all it needed to be.
That's really all it had to be. And you can make a Cedric.
Yeah, you got the mouthpiece and MVP. You got Cedric and Shelton as your tag team, and you got Bobby as your heavy. You're done.
That's it.
You have what you need.
And if you want to dominate another aspect of it, you either bring Sasha Banks or Bianca Belair and have her be running the rush shot in the women's division. And guess what? You can have her with that dominant feud with Becky Lynch right there.
It was one of those things where it was so simple enough and it was so good that you didn't have to do a lot to it. But if you needed to slide a piece in there, it worked perfectly. So everything. And here's another thing that you could add it to made it interesting. You say Bianca Belair, slide Sasha Banks in there.
That's what I was just, either Sasha Banks or Bianca Belair.
Sasha Banks being the boss with the Hurt business?
Ooh, that would have been good.
That writes itself.
And you know what? And then you get her big cousin Snoop Dogg to do the theme. Bam, over.
Send us a check. Stanford, send us the check. Well, we got you. Like we'll send you the script next week. Mm-hmm. We'll send you one on Sunday. We'll send you one on Thursday. Cut the check.
That's right.
We're done.
That's
Let's go home.
Mm-hmm. But apparently, hey, look, if Freddie Prinze Jr. couldn't make it work, they'd find a way to piss us off too. So,
honest, you're not the first. I'm not. It's just not the first time I've been talking. Like someone told me, like, hey, you should pray for them. I'm like, they can't afford me.
Yeah, they can't afford me. Not with all that foolishness.
They can't afford me.
Now Tony Khan gives us a call. I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay with giving that. I'm okay with giving that a try.
I mean, my wife might like the thought of moving to the East Coast, but other than that, no, they can't afford me. It's just, I find myself trying to understand where this company is going sometimes with the things that they set up, because I get the feeling that regardless of what happens in Elimination Chamber, it's going to be Brock and Roman regardless.
It's going to be Brock and Roman, title versus title.
And if it's not, you can still have the Raw title with Bobby holding it, or Seth Rollins holding it.
Ooh.
And that opens up Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens. So you have
stuff to do.
That's kind of where I am with it. I don't see it being Brock winning. I see it's either Bobby or Seth Rollins. That's where I kind of see that going, because I see Bobby, Big E, or Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens. And I get the feeling something keeps nudging me towards Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens.
Well, Big E's back on the blue brand.
And Big E's back on SmackDown.
His push has been just completely halted. He's back in the New Day. A lot of people are pissed off about that. But
so you see where I'm going with this. It feels like, and this is with everything we're seeing with Seth Rollins, he didn't lose to Roman Reigns. Kevin Owens keeps trying to find a way to weasel his way into the Elimination Chamber or find a way to get himself into WrestleMania. Seth Rollins wins somehow in that Elimination Chamber. Kevin Owens is going to find his way to wedge his way in there. Now you got a really good storyline, because remember, those two guys went out at WrestleMania in the empty Performance Center. And even though it was an empty Performance Center, that match was still incredible. Kevin Owens jumped off the freaking WrestleMania sign.
Like, you know what? And Joe makes a really good point. Rollins and Owens, they don't need a belt to be fight for. Those are two guys, I think, that when you talk about people that need a title versus don't need a title, I think that Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins are at the point they don't need to be champions.
They don't. But at the same time, those two for a belt is a hell of a main event.
That's money. That is money.
It's a hell of a main event. Because this is true. They're going to put on the show regardless. But you put a belt on the line, it will kind of raise that bar a little bit higher. Yeah. I would like to see Bobby hold it, Joe. I agree with you. I think he holds it in the meantime, and I'd like to see Bobby hold it. I would love to have Bobby have a long-term title run. I'm talking to next WrestleMania to establish some dominance, and then maybe, and then take that time to build someone up. Maybe bring Braun Breaker up. I'd rather him be Braun Steiner. Bring him up this summer. Build him up on the Raw brand to challenge Lashley next WrestleMania with dad and uncle in his corner. I don't hate that, because you have a storyline already baked in with Bobby. He's already beaten Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Okay, he had Paul Heyman's help. Okay, fine. Well, I mean, he's still managed to pin him, so that's how you're going to look at it. But yeah, he beat Brock Lesnar. So he's the champion. He's earned it. He slayed the beast that he needed to slay, because he thought his entire career for 20 years Brock Lesnar's been ducking him. Well, guess what? He beat him now. So you can take that and run with it and have him be a champion for as long as you feel like. Because honestly, until somebody comes and beats him, Bobby's the guy. And he earned the right to be the guy. He went and took the belt off the guy who was the free agent, who took the belt off of him, and he could took the belt off somebody else, and now he can go bring it back. So I don't hate the thought of that at all. I think it's really, really possible. It's just a matter of, and here's another thing that I don't hate. Roman Reigns beating Brock at WrestleMania and turning that straight into Drew McIntyre afterward. Oh. I don't hate the thought of that. I don't hate the thought of it being Big E down the road for the SmackDown title. I don't hate that in 6 months, 6 to 9 months. The thing is, and I thought Paul Heyman brought the best perspective to this. He said the best wrestling storylines you write, almost a year ahead of time. Yeah. If you write an entire year out, then everything else you just got to fill in the small details. Right. But where you're going to be at the beginning, and where you're going to be at the end. All you got to do is fill in the middle.
Right.
And I think what they've failed to do as well is fill in the middle.
Right. Well, that's been WWE writing now for the last 20 plus years. But all right,
this is true.
Let's jump back to the NFL.
All right, I keep looking for the logo. See what he's doing over here.
All right, Jackson. Yeah. Nathaniel Hackett, not to be confused with Buddy Hackett, is now the new head coach of the Denver Broncos. Do you think this brings Aaron Rodgers to town? Or?
The Doug Marrone protege has come to town. I don't know though. I don't know. Like everyone's kind of like they're like no. It's not a ploy to try to get Aaron Rodgers here, but kind of feels like it is. It's like
no, we
aren't trying to get him here, but let's hire the guy that Aaron Rodgers really likes and has a good relationship.
Bring his offensive coordinator in.
Yeah. Bring him down. Give him the opportunity to coach for us. Right. But he's had to work with some crap quarterbacks in the past. I've looked up his resume, and he's helped. He was a part of that Jaguars team that a lot of people think got screwed over in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. So, but it is what it is. I mean, he got to work with Rodgers. He got to work with LaFleur. So, that's another person from the trickling down from the Shanahan tree that gets another job in the NFL. I think we've hammered it home this episode that happens. And I think we even talked about it the previous time that Josh was on with us, that's just how it goes in the NFL. It's not necessarily if you are a good coach or not, although that's obviously part of it, but it's who was the coach above you? Who was your mentor? Who were you a coordinator or an assistant for? And that's how you get a head coaching job.
Who did you work under, and what system did they run? A lot of times this would get you the gig.
And of course, and now Joe Compton asked the question, why would he go to the same division with Mahomes and Herbert? Why would I'm thinking he means why would Aaron Rodgers go to that same division? I mean, maybe I'm hoping
because that team was a quarterback away last year from being legitimately competitive.
Yes. Vic Fangio was not the problem. I don't think Vic Fangio was the problem, but I also don't think he was the solution, if that makes sense. I don't think he would have been the guy to fix what was wrong and push them over the edge, so to speak. A Nathaniel Hackett with a quarterback that fits the system that he runs. Oh yeah. That changes everything in Denver because Denver has a decent offensive line. They got a decent run game. They have weapons. They have defense. It's just there was another element that they just didn't have, and you hope Nathaniel Hackett brings it once again. It's another one of those, he coached with this guy for this period of time, and now granted, he was an OC in Green Bay. That team had success, and it's like, okay, fine. So, it's worth giving him the opportunity. I do think it's one of those wink, wink. Hey, we're not trying to get this guy, but it's leaning in that direction. If there's a team that's going to get Aaron Rodgers, that has the draft capital to get Aaron Rodgers, that becomes a better team immediately after adding Aaron Rodgers, it is Denver. It really is.
And here's the thing too. I would love to understand the cap question too of bringing in Aaron Rodgers because Devontae Adams is a free agent this season too.
Right,
and you can bring in. Him and Aaron are tight. Devontae Adams really doesn't want to play for another quarterback except for Aaron Rodgers.
You see where I'm going with this? Because they stopped his negotiations in the middle of training camp, I want to say. Because he's like, look, until I know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, I'm not committing anywhere. He didn't want to commit to Green Bay long term because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is committed to Green Bay long term. Now, here's the caveat for Denver. If you're going to make a move for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you want to know for certain that you're going to have him for a significant period of time. If Aaron Rodgers is on the fence and waffling about retirement every 6 months, then maybe it's not worth it for Denver, in which case, fine. Find a quarterback, draft within a year or two, and then, start to do that from scratch. So, honestly, either way, Denver's in a good position. You can either get yourself that young quarterback to actually bring along with a team that's got a lot of veterans around you and a lot of weapons and develop it that way, or already made offense with Aaron Rodgers walking in the door and you move up that timeline a little bit. It's not
poor
a bad look.
Poor Teddy Bridgewater.
And I feel terrible for Teddy Bridgewater because I think, honestly, he probably never should have been pushed out in Minnesota the way he was. But then again, you can make the same case about Drew Brees being pushed out in San Diego. So we can do that for years.
Right.
But the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett is another one of those situations where it was going to happen anyway because that's where the league goes. So, yeah, I could sit here and tell you that it's probably crap because, the way things go, but it's a copycat league. So I'm not surprised. I'm not bothered.
All right. So we already talked about Mike McDaniel. We don't need to reopen that. Josh McDaniels, Mike McDaniel, he's Mike McDaniel's not cousin because he has an S at the end of his name.
Now, this is one that I look at because we talk, I heard Lovie Smith and he wasn't any good. So what separated Josh McDaniels again? Because he didn't make it 2 full seasons in Denver.
Nope.
So
definitely didn't make it to a Super Bowl.
And he didn't make it today. He didn't make it through to day 2 in Indianapolis.
Nope.
So what's the talk about this here? What made him so appealing? Here's what's weird. I don't know if it's more weird that they hired Josh McDaniels for that job opening or hiring him for that opening after you just got rid of John Gruden and the circumstances behind that hiring were so weird.
Right.
That's what I don't get. And why are we trusting the Raiders to make sound decisions? I don't know, but then again, I'm not a Raiders fan. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have it on my conscience. But it's one of those things that's just like, I see where you're going with this, but why this guy? Because I could have found another couple guys that would have made sense because I think a guy like Eric Bieniemy makes sense for that job.
Right. And that's another thing that I was going to say. Why is Eric Bieniemy? Because he was being mentioned. He had like an 8-hour interview with the Saints, but he didn't get the job.
Right.
So, and then of course, the Jaguars, who we're going to talk about in a second, swift hard on Byron Leftwich. Well, it's not no skin off his nose. He can go back to being the offensive coordinator of the Bucs. No big deal.
I like his approach to this though, because Byron Leftwich's thing was, okay, I'm interested in being part of your franchise because remember that's the franchise that drafted him and he started his career there. Now I truly believe in my heart that he has a very strong love for the city of Jacksonville and that organization. I really believe he does.
Well, they have an amazing TGI Fridays.
Oh, I love the Deadpool reference. But here's the thing. Here's why I give Byron Leftwich credit. And I'd like to see not just black candidates. I'd like to see more coaching candidates in general do this. I'd like to see more guys say, you know what? I'll take this job, but it needs to be a better situation for me. Because if you believe reports, he didn't want to join them with Jacksonville as long as Trent Baalke was there.
Yeah, he did not. Yeah, he didn't want to go to war with Balaki.
There's so many references there.
There are just too many.
It's just,
but honestly, and that was a good move by him though too. Like you want to talk about ballsy, but at the same token, this is a guy, he knows his worth. He knows what he can do, and he's not going to settle.
And if he can find a better gig to start a better footing, why wouldn't you? Because let's not kid ourselves. This time a year from now, who's to say Matt Rule's still in Carolina?
Who's to say that Bruce Arians doesn't retire again?
Right. Like he could be the next guy in Tampa. He could be the next guy in Carolina. There are options there for him.
Yeah, and Byron Leftwich he's going to have his choice of jobs.
He did the same thing that I think Dan Quinn did. Dan Quinn pulled himself out of consideration. He says, you know what? I'm going to stay at Dallas as the defensive coordinator. They've got a really good unit there. They can take another one with it. That defense has some freaks on it. They can be a lot of fun next season. Dan Quinn can go and turn those guys loose, make himself look like an even more attractive candidate and go for a better job. I don't blame Dan Quinn any more than I don't blame Byron Leftwich. If you are going to take a head coaching job, especially one in the situation that's going to make you look worse because you walked into a bad situation, be smart about it. If they weren't going to get rid of Trent Baalke, because let's not kid ourselves, his track record ain't that great.
It's as bad as it gets. It's as bad as it gets, like Trey said.
So if that's the case, I'm Byron Leftwich, and I talked about this with Houston. I think more people should be choosy about whether or not they go to Houston. Lovey's situation might be a little bit different. But if you know you got a better opportunity waiting somewhere else, why deal with Houston? Why not go somewhere else? Or why not wait for a better job? So guys like Dan Quinn, guys like Byron Leftwich, I do not blame them. Go for the situation that helps you, because not only when you're in that particular situation, when you're an athlete, when you're a coach, it's not just about your current job. Sometimes you're auditioning for the next one as well. So you want to be able to put together a resume or something that allows your own career development to go the way it should go or the way you desire it to go. And I think that actually hurts Byron Leftwich and his standing as a coach more than it helps it. So I don't blame him at all in that taking.
Absolutely. I mean, and plus in Jackson, and I know you'll agree with me on this, that Jacksonville team, from the ownership all the way down to the head coach, is such a dumpster fire that's not a job that anyone with any common sense in their head, especially someone that's going to be a first-time head coach, especially a first-time head coach of color, is going to want to put themselves through at all.
Especially like a Jacksonville legend like Byron Leftwich too.
Right. Like what's next? You're going to pull poor
like
David Garrard into this?
And then your reputation is ruined.
Right. And it was a situation where Jacksonville had the opportunity to do two things, really. One, kind of reshuffle the deck and say, you know what? This is who we are as an organization. This is what we want to do. This is who's going to run it. This is who we're going to trust with the coaching hire. And they could have done that. And it would have been a good move for them. And it would have set up, too, a chance to bring in a guy who not only could do the job well, and I hate doing this for its own sake, but you got a guy who can do the job and at the same time is the PR hire in Byron Leftwich. He's a guy who comes in, maybe does the job well, and endears himself to the fans at the same time. And he walks in with the quarterback, which is another good thing. Jacksonville had the opportunity to right a lot of wrongs and kill a lot of birds with one stone. And they failed to do it because they wouldn't get rid of Trent Baalke. So, hey.
And that's what makes that job such garbage, is when you got Trent Baalke there, that's what ruins everything about it.
And this is why this is why guys making decisions like Dan Quinn, like Byron Leftwich, I'd like to see more coaching candidates do this, because it becomes a situation of you wait for the right job. You take the right job and you have a better understanding and a better opportunity for success with that job. Plus, it forces teams and organizations to change what they're doing.
Right.
Stop trying to be like everybody else and figure out, A, who the hell you are, and B, what the hell you want to be. Figure out your own identity and build from there. It just makes more sense to do it that way. There's a reason why New England is what it is. There's a reason why the Steelers are what they are. There's a reason why a team like even Kansas City is what it is. The Hunt family's been there for a long time. They know who they are, and they know what they wanted to be. There was a time when we knew what the Giants were, and we knew what they wanted to be. And then they had this rash of terrible head coaches that weren't better than they were. You fired Tom Coughlin to hire Ben McAdoo, who looked like a walrus with a sexy haircut, which makes no damn sense to me.
And he was a freaking wackadoo.
He was a wackadoo of a coach. That made no sense. Then you hire two worse guys after him. Your coaching situation got worse over time. How do you do that without knowing who you were and what you wanted to be? And God bless Ernie and Corsi for building that organization into what it was. And he walks away. And it falls apart within half a decade.
Yep.
You had your identity of what you were. You had the identity of what you wanted to become because you had a standard with that organization and the success that it had over a couple decades. And it all falls apart. because you couldn't make good decisions and you forgot what you were and what you wanted to be and doing the things that made sense, making the decisions that made sense to fit that standard. We can make jokes all we want about this. Oh, the standard is the standard. Guess what? It's been their identity for 5 or 6 decades now. And you see the success that's come of it. Is it an every year thing? No, but expecting that is also unrealistic. How many other organizations have had that kind of run over that long period of time? This is what happens. We have an identity. You know who you are. You know what you want to become, and you make your decisions based on it. And there's so many organizations that do not get it. And we wonder, I'll say this again, and we wonder why the same dozen teams are doing the same things every few years and no one ever gets anywhere.
So, and finally, Kevin O'Connell is expected to be hired as the Vikings head coach once after Sunday is over. What do you think of this hire, Jackson Law? Do you think brand new GM, I'm going to mess up this brother's name, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, do you think this is going to be a good hire for him? Do you think this turns this Vikings team around from middling to decent?
I don't know, because they've already committed to keeping Kirk Cousins around.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's got to be like a thing that changes
Kirk
to start out. So
Kirk.
I don't know. I feel like it's just going to be same old Vikings if Cousins is still QB.
Yeah, they got to figure out the quarterback situation. And the weird part about it is there's a lot of stuff I like about Minnesota. I like their running game. I like their running back. I like the weapons that they have in certain receiver positions. I love Adam Thielen. I like that defense. I love the linebacking core. I love the pair of safeties they got in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. There aren't many pairs of safeties that are better than Minnesota's. Buffalo, I think, is the top tier. And there's maybe a couple that are trying to like fight for second place, and Minnesota's in that group.
Right.
They've got a lot of pieces that make that team really, really intriguing. And honestly, who's the team to beat right now in the NFC North? Are we really afraid of the Packers anymore? Like after we saw what San Francisco did, you might have gotten the blueprint to beat Green Bay. So if you're Chicago, if you're Minnesota, you're going, hey, we just got to do a couple of things right here. We're right back in this thing.
Right.
And Minnesota is one of those teams I feel like you got to get 2 things right. You got to get the coach right, and you got to get the quarterback right. And I'm with Jackson. I don't know if they're going to get the quarterback right eventually because they got a lot of money tied up into Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. And because of that, by default, they may not get the coach right.
Probably not.
So,
well, this is also one of those, again, where you're looking at a Sean McVay guy. So it's like, well,
the Sean McVay guy expect to come in and, try to create magic. All right, good luck with that. Not everybody has Matthew Stafford. But
right. We should try to bring you in next week if you're able to, because we haven't talked about the Super Bowl at all. And I know next week we're gonna be dissecting the Super Bowl, because I'm actually gonna watch the Super Bowl from beginning to end. I watch every.
I'd love to, but next week I got a bunch going on.
You got way too much going on.
I got the Josh Taylor college speaking series, and I got some other outside interest stuff happening. Otherwise, I'd be here. You know me.
No, I hear you. I guess that means I guess Trey will have to come in and do it.
Trey will be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
Let's jump to the NBA real quick. How likely is this James Harden to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons? How likely is this going to be? Because there's some reports that are saying that it's pretty much been agreed to. They just have to make a little bit of financial stuff work.
We've got like a Woj versus Shams thing going on here, because one was reporting that, hey, there's a lot of traction. The other one's reporting, no, there's nothing going on there. So who's lying?
If it's Woj versus Shams, you wait. You just wait, because one of them is probably right. It's just a matter of letting it all play out, because those two guys usually they're nailing it most days.
Well, see, I don't like this though, because why are you going to trade a guy not just in your own conference, but right there in your own division?
See, I feel like the move for Philly should be, I think Dame should be the number one play, especially because of what the Trailblazers did today and what they've been doing, other trades that they've made leading up to here. They traded away Gary. They basically traded away Gary Trent Jr. for Eric Bledsoe. Okay.
Yep.
Because they traded Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell straight up, and then moved Norman Powell for Eric Bledsoe and Justice Winslow and some other pieces. And so they basically just got Eric Bledsoe out of it, which makes absolutely no sense. They just traded away CJ McCollum today and Larry Nance Jr., and they got back Josh Hart in return. Good job. I like Josh Hart, but he's not that guy to me. And so
I agree.
I think time may be up for Dame, and I see, Portland fans talking about they cleared up like $60 million in cap because of like a $24 million exception that got accepted. You know who else has had significant cap like the past 4 seasons? The Detroit Pistons. Who are the top free agents that they signed? Mason Plumlee. They got Jeremy Grant, who's fixing to be moved. Like who are we talking about here? You've got $60 million cap, but all that's going to be is you're going to spend way too much money on players that do not deserve it. You're going to be another team that hands off $40-50 million for Matthew Dellavedova, okay, who scored like 9 points a game.
Remember the Sean McAvey
championship team?
That Sean McAvey free agent, that free agent contract. Sean McAvey, what was his name? The one center, I can't remember what was his name. Sean. No, not Sean Mac.
I don't know.
I can't remember his name. I know he was this 7-foot center, was perennial, always off the bench, and he got like this huge contract.
You mean Anderson Varejao?
No, not Anderson Varejao.
Trying to think.
I'm Googling it.
I agree with you, Bryan, in the sense that I don't know why. I understand, I guess, why Brooklyn would want to do it. And I have my own feelings about Brooklyn, too. And this may come to bite me back in the butt about Brooklyn. But this is something I've kind of wanted to write or do content-wise for Vendetta to talk about. Look at the players that were on this team just 4 years ago under Mike Atkinson and the trajectory that they were on and what they're all doing individually right now, and compare it to where the Brooklyn Nets are right now and who's better off.
Ooh.
Jared Allen is a preliminary all-star. He should have been an all-star. I fully think I'm fine with the replacements that they got for the all-star game, but Jared Allen should have been one that got in. They replaced a front court player with a back court player, which has its own things, like why even have front court and back courts?
Right.
When you're
Fair
voting
argument
for all-star, if you're just going to replace a front court player with a back court player, keep it the same. I think Jared Allen should have got in the East to replace Kevin Durant. Even though I'm happy that LaMelo Ball got in, because I think LaMelo Ball was also on that same level as well. Karis LeVert, ever since he is finally back from his cancer scare, which thank God he got traded, because they would not have caught that. And we could be talking about a very sad situation with Karis LeVert. But he has been balling out recently now that he's back and fully healthy. And he just got traded to Cleveland. So him and Jared Allen reunite. Cleveland's playing amazing. D'Angelo Russell is playing like the D-Lo again from that Brooklyn Nets team. And the Timberwolves, they're in the playoff hunt. They're in the play-in, which
Jim McIlvaine,
I guess
was the name. Jim McIlvaine.
Oh my God.
Jim McIlvaine was a consistent bencher. He was basically like Spencer Hawes. It was the same thing.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, I think it's a good point. No, I think Jackson makes an excellent point. I
Absolutely.
mean, for as far as Brooklyn goes, and there's, I don't know, that Jackson, I think what he's laid out makes a lot of sense to me. And there's also this. It's just, how much more do you want to have to deal with either A, everything going on with Kyrie Irving, or B, James Harden just
being James Harden.
Nothing against how he's playing, but yeah, James Harden being James Harden, because if you're believing reports out there, he's kind of not happy in Brooklyn. And you got to start looking at, James Harden's history with certain
They still
teams.
got the COVID lockdowns up there in New York, so he can't go to the strip clubs.
Right. And it's just like you got to start paying attention to patterns and things that have happened with James Harden in certain teams. That's so strange. Totally messed up my train of thought.
Sorry.
That's what bothered me the rest of the night. But it just, for me, it comes back to, and I think Jackson probably explained it better than I ever could. That's disturbing. That is disturbing. But yeah, for Jackson's point, like, what is Brooklyn trying to accomplish now? And if you are going to move James Harden, what are you going to accomplish with the return? Are you doing this for the sake of trying to still be in the hunt? Or are you doing this because you feel like you need to get rid of him because you have no other option? If the answer is latter, that's not good. If you're trying to find a way to still contend with this team, I don't understand the return you're going to get back that's going to help you do it. I think
if you seriously want to get rid of him,
a rock and a hard place.
Right. And if you just want to get rid of him, why would you send him to Philly? He's like right down the road. You're going to be there. You're fighting for them in your own division. Here's an idea. Just send his ass to Detroit.
The same thing goes for Philly too, because Philly would be sending 2 top 10 defenders basically to the Nets, because Ben Simmons would be coming back. I know we like to crap on his offense, but he's a really good defender and he's a good ball handler. He can ball. He just has to get out of his own head and realize that he is taller, bigger, than stronger than Trae Young, and that he can finish a layup over Trae Young. He's got to remember that he can do that. And either Matisse Thybulle or Tyrese Maxey would have to be a part of the deal too, for either James Harden or if they go for Damian Lillard. One of those 2 young pieces have to be involved with it. Both excellent players, excellent defenders.
And wherever Thybulle goes, the team that gets him is going to be very happy, just for the sake of him being a team defender. I mean, these are good team guys too, for all intents and purposes. So you put these guys in the right situation, they can at least become contributing pieces towards a team that can move upward at the very least.
All right. So now, real quick before we end the show, Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer will not be facing criminal charges. For those that have been paying attention to Major League Baseball, Trevor Bauer he's in some Deshaun Watson like danger.
Yeah, I forgot about this.
Coming out of San Diego, but apparently there's going to be no charges brought up against him. He's in the clear, but is he gonna? I think he still could be awaiting a suspension if baseball is even going to be played this year due to lockout. Any comments on this?
Could there be better timing right now for Trevor Bauer? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. It's just this might be the best timing he could possibly come up with right now, because this season's probably not going to start on time. Spring training's not going to start on time. Nope. So it gives, if nothing else, and I'm not saying this is being a good thing or advantageous, it kind of gives Trevor Bauer some time for all this to really blow over. And it's fair or unfair, regardless of how we look at, what happened and how we interpret what happened and how it makes him look as an individual. This kind of gives him that smokescreen, because right now this labor dispute doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon.
Right.
So by the time it's done, people might be so happy to get baseball back. They're just like, oh yeah, Trevor Bauer, yeah, let him on back in. And you don't want to look at it as just overlooking a guy, but at the same time, it kind of becomes a convenient piece of timing, if you
right.
Which is neither good nor bad, but it just
right.
You
it
look
just
at it
is.
for what it is.
It just is.
Exactly.
Jackson?
I mean, I don't follow baseball all that much anymore, but I knew about this story, back when it was going out. So I've got nothing else too much to say. Like I said, I made the comment when we first started talking about it. I totally forgot about this entire situation. I feel bad. That
just goes to show how bad baseball has become when you just forget everything. Yeah. Like I forgot that there was a labor dispute. I totally forgot until I read that story. So that just lets you know. But there is one thing that I want to bring up. And this is actually something I'm actually going to be going back in time, Jackson. I'm reaching back in time in the old I'm getting in Doc Brown's time machine. And this was something that was brought to my attention last year. Willie O'Ree, first brother to make it in the NHL, finally got his jersey retired. He finally got his ceremony.
There we go.
This is a man who did it with one eye for the most, and did it in a time where, look, being black in any sport sucked, but being black in a sport like hockey,
I'd make the case in some instances that being black in hockey right now still.
Yeah. Who's our brother
that?
from the Capitals that got all kinds of crap on him because he did what he's supposed to do.
Right. There's the case to be made. And honestly, I think part of that is because guys like Willie O'Ree, who should have been recognized and should have been honored and should have received his flowers while he could still smell them a long time ago. If there's anything I'm glad about is that Willie O'Ree, thank God he's still alive to be properly honored the way he should be.
Absolutely.
If that's the one thing I'm saying. It's one of those things where honestly, you look at the NHL and you're like, all right, NHL, good job honoring Willie O'Ree. Well, what the hell took you so long?
Right.
It took so long, you can't even give him credit for it like you probably should because it took so long to happen. Because there's been so few opportunities for the NHL to not only use what you have in Willie O'Ree, but other advancements that you can make in this game. Let's not kid ourselves. There's this message that hockey is for everyone. And I don't think everybody believes it on its surface. I don't believe everybody believes it on its surface. And I think part of the reason why people are slow to believe it is because this league has been so slow to do the things that it should have done a long time ago, like honoring Willie O'Ree, like being a little bit more proactive and being a little bit more, forceful as far as addressing situations that happen in both the upper levels of the NHL and in the minor league levels as well when it comes to racism in hockey. It hasn't been addressed earlier quick enough, and it should have been a long time ago. And I honestly believe this is just one man who's covered this league in the past. You really have opportunities to do more with this game, but if you're not showing a willingness to really get to that destination, you can't expect people to be in a rush to get there with you.
Right.
You have to be committed to getting to that destination. And if you're not committed to getting there, you can't expect other people to be in a hurry because this league has not been in a hurry to get to that destination. So I'm glad that they're honoring Willie O'Ree. I don't want to sit there and act like I'm ungrateful for it because I am grateful and I'm glad it's happening. But you know what, NHL? You got a lot of work to make up for.
Absolutely.
Honor Willie O'Ree, give him his flowers, and then get back to work because you got more stuff to do. There are some organizations that are really, really trying to close that gap. One of them is right here in our own town. I will give the Penguins credit. They are doing a lot of things and taking a lot of steps to close that gap.
They're finally making good on the atrocity they committed in the Hill District. They're finally making good on that.
They're really trying to make strides, not only from a local standpoint, but from a standpoint of being able to grow the game and expand that audience. They are making the effort, and I cannot begrudge them. If anything, I give the Penguins an A+, and not just because it's the team I grew up rooting for, but I think there is a legitimate, honest effort to do the right thing. But they cannot be the only ones. They cannot do it by themselves. There need to be more organizations doing it. I'm looking at you, Chicago. There's got to be more support from the league. I'm looking at you, Gary Bettman. When you tell me hockey's for everyone, you need to put your money where your mouth is and have every single damn organization on board, because until you do, I have no reason to believe what you're telling me. And this is as a fan who's been a fan for almost entire 40 years of my life that I've been alive. I love this game, but I want my son to be able to love this game as much as I do.
Exactly.
And I want him to be able to appreciate this and be in a world where he can love this game and not have to look over his shoulder and worry about how other people are treating him.
Exactly.
Once we get to that point, then I'll be satisfied. But NHL, put your skates on. You got a lot. You got some serious sprints you need to do to catch up on that workload.
Pack a lunch, because it's time to work. Absolutely. All right. Well, that's about all we've got right about now. Make sure you follow Josh Taylor on the tweet machine at Josh Taylor HD, where you're going to get expert analysis like you had here tonight.
I would go up for an expert,
and
I'll say something.
Hey man, come on now. It's time. You know what? For 2022, it's about time you stop selling yourself short. You know that you a voice.
Okay. All right. I'll say this much. You'll get expert analysis on how to make really good grilled cheese.
There you go. Hey, that works too. And of course, make sure you follow Jackson Law at JLaw1995.
That's correct.
Make sure you follow the show at Tanndemonium VSM. I think I'm gonna try live tweeting the Super Bowl this year. I think I'm gonna live tweet the Super Bowl this year. I'm actually gonna sit and I'm gonna watch it. So if you want to hear what I'm thinking and you want to see some back and forth between me and Josh Taylor, because it's gonna happen, make sure you're following the Twitter account.
I'll be talking about the commercials for the most part. So let's just,
you know what? I can't wait. I can't wait to talk the commercials. The commercials are the main reasons why I even watch the
best part of the game, man. Not the
best part of the NFL.
I'm gonna ask if you're paying attention to this. Arkansas is in a close one right now. Number 1 ranked Auburn tonight.
They're packed at Bud Walton.
Oh, I love it. They are, man.
Kids were camped out. Students were camped out. Oh, I love it.
36-35 right now.
Oh, wow.
Let's go.
Apparently Joe Compton wants me to go live on Twitch while I'm watching the game.
Oh gosh.
I don't know. Hey Trey, you're the boss. Can we make that happen? I'll go live on Twitch for the whole Super Bowl to give my vocal reactions.
Oh my!
Oh, I just got the green light. Okay, I'm going live on Twitch. I'll be live on Sunday on Twitch for the whole game. I'll be live. So, all right, let's do this. I got the green light. So, make sure you're here Sunday, because I'm going to be going live on Twitch talking the Super Bowl.
And so, quickly, also, shout out Desmond Bain. I pumped my fist in the air earlier. He is a part of the 3-point contest at All-Star Weekend, so he does get to go his All-Star. So shout out Grizz fam, man.
Oh yeah, one final shout out before we go. I did order my Show Enough Chucks.
Nice.
Show Enough Chucks coming.
Nice. I like it.
My Converse.
I love it. I love it.
All right, we'll talk to you guys. Actually, we'll talk to you guys on Sunday, and then we'll be right back here on Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Tanndemonium Sports Show. See ya.